We got a bidet! Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we got another Book of Boba, I should say, discussion for you. We are happy to have Tony back here with us. Thanks for being with us, Tony, and my wife, Sarah. And then one thing I want to quickly mention, we released the introduction to our videos early. That was going to come out the first full week, or the last full week of January is when I said that all the new stuff was coming out. I got anxious and I wanted to release this early. So hopefully you all enjoyed the new introduction that will follow our videos moving forward. But to get on with this episode, Tony, what happened this week?
Oh gosh, so much. This is a packed episode. So in the modern day, we'll say, Boba and Fennec have the assassin from the first episode in their custody, and they take him to Jabba's palace, or Boba's palace now, I guess you could say, and we're trying to interrogate him of who hired him, and he wouldn't talk, so they threw him in the Rancor pit. Of course, we all know the Rancor isn't there anymore, but as the gate to where the Rancor would have come out was opening, he admitted that he said the mayor did it, right?
Yeah.
So he said the mayor hired them, and then so Boba and Fennec took the prisoner to see the mayor, and the mayor was about to give Boba a bounty, like he was still a bounty hunter, and he's like, no, I'm not a bounty hunter anymore. And then it turns out, I think it was kind of implied that the Hutts hired them because the twin Hutts showed up on Tatooine, and the people that were carrying them on the pedestal were about to crumble under their weight. I thought that was a really fun detail. So they went out there and basically they just said, like, hey, we have claim to the underworld throne because of Jabba, and Boba's like, no, it's mine now because I killed for it. And then that gladiator Wookiee shows up, which I don't know. I know a little bit about, but not a ton. And they kind of have a stare down, and that's pretty much it for the modern day, because the rest of the episode pretty much takes place in the past. So Boba is amongst the Tusken Raiders, as we know, and he finds out that there is a train that comes by every so often, and basically shoots the Tusken Raiders for sport because of Western historical allegory, Tusken Raiders being like Native Americans and making railroads through and all that stuff. So that happened, and then Boba, obviously realized that because he saw it, and he saw that the gang that you saw in the first episode were in the train. So he went to this bar and kind of took care of them. And then he came back, and that kind of helped gain the trust of the Tuskens. And then he took speeder bikes from the bar, and he trained the Tuskens on how to use the speeder bikes to attack the train, because again, Western train heist, all that stuff. So they did that, not without a few obstacles, but they did that. They were ultimately successful, and it turns out the Pikes were controlling the train, and Boba basically told them to F off, and here's a little bit of water. So at this point, the Tuskens like really, really trust Boba, so they put a little like lizard thing in his head, and he goes on like this spirit quest. And basically, like, you see metaphorically the birth of the Boba Fett character that is kind of in the show, and that we saw in Mando season 2. And he gets the stick that the Tuskens make into his kind of staff thing. There's probably a name for it, and I'm not sure what it is.
The gap
Um,
stick.
yeah. And they give him like Tusken clothes and all that stuff. And they basically like accept him as one of their own. And I think that is pretty much like that. It leaves off at that point of him being one of them. So
Yeah.
I like to call this one either the Dune episode or the Dances with Wolves episode, whatever you prefer.
So before we started recording, Tony had mentioned to me that he saw a lot of connections to the Dune movie. What was the parallels for this episode to the movie?
Well, I would say parallels to the book as well. But basically, like in the latter half of the book, and it's what you really haven't seen in the movie yet because the Dune movie was only half the book. But it reminded me of Paul Atreides being amongst the Fremen and teaching them how to fight and all that stuff to fight back against the Padishah Emperor and all those sorts of things. And the drug that he uses literally called spice in the Boba show, which is the same as Dune. So yeah, so all that stuff kind of reminded me of that.
I noticed you just mentioned Dances with Wolves too. That's one I hadn't thought of, but it actually does kind of match that a little bit, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or if you prefer The Last Samurai or Avatar, I mean, whatever. That sort of story has been done so many times.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute since I've seen Dances with the Wolves, but
Tatanka, Buffalo.
I remember the first time I went to watch that movie, I popped it in my Blu-ray player, and then I saw it was 4 hours long, and I'm like, "Oh, don't have time to watch this."
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about some things that we really liked about this episode. For me, I know last week I was kind of like, I liked the show, but this wasn't quite the episode for me. I really enjoyed this episode. How about you guys?
Yes.
Definitely thought it was a lot better than the first one. It was longer too by what, like 15
I was
minutes?
so excited when I saw that. I saw that this thing was almost an hour long. Granted, the credits are kind of long and they did a little bit of a recap from the first episode, but still, there was, I would say, at least 10 minutes of actual footage longer than last week. Some other things that I enjoyed, I loved I think you referenced it as the bar, when he went out in the night to take out the biker gang. I absolutely love that scene. It showed to me what I felt Boba should have been like in the first episode when they were ganged up on by what would you call it? When they got jumped.
They're like the Nightfall or something like that.
Yeah, I felt like that should have been it, which is going to allude to something I want to talk about later in this episode. But I enjoyed that quite a bit. But the thing I'm most excited for from this episode was where we go with the Hutts. Because I think this is going to be almost treading into an area where you wouldn't think Star Wars would go on the screen because, Star Wars is meant for kids. It's what George Lucas has pledged this whole time, is that it's a kids show. Well, I think with this whole spice thing going on and the gang war with Jabba, or gangster, I should say, I'm excited to see where that goes because I think it's going to be a little bit of a darker path than Star Wars normally goes down, or more adult path, I should say. So I'm very excited to see where that goes. And one other thing I want to mention, I'm not taking credit for where I heard this, or for knowing this, I should say. The Wookiee that showed up, I listened to Star Wars Theory. You should check out his channel. He's a huge Star Wars YouTuber. He actually explains that there's a comic book that Wookiee is referenced in. It
involves Obi-Wan.
Yeah, and so check out that channel, check out the comic. Once again, I'm not going to claim that as my own knowledge because I learned from him. But that Wookiee actually has a backstory a little bit that's already in Star Wars lore. But Sarah, what did you enjoy from this episode?
I liked that we saw more of the past. That's kind of something that I talked about last episode was that I wish they really just delved into that instead of doing all these like little tiny flashbacks back and forth. So I liked that they just had like a designated segment for it so we could really fully immerse ourselves in there. Um, I like the fighting sequences where they're like training him how to fight and the learning to communicate back and forth. And it was pretty funny watching them learn how to jump from speeder bike to speeder bike. I'm sure that training must have hurt a lot, but it was kind of funny to watch. So, um, I think I saw somewhere the main Tusken Raider that's like teaching him how to fight. They're just a little bit different than everybody else. Um, and I don't know for sure if that's true or not. I did not look this up for a fact, but I heard that it was actually a stunt woman. So I thought that was kind of cool. You know, you see these Tusken Raiders and they all look alike and they all are, they're all kind of like brawny and like they fight and stuff. So your mind kind of, at least for me, thinks that they're mostly men. But to hear that there's a stunt woman behind there, that's the one that's actually training them to do all this fighting and whatnot, I thought that was pretty cool. So whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it's neat to think about, I think.
I can't remember if it's from Mandalorian or not, but I think a lot of the show Star Wars stuff, like on Disney Plus, I'm pretty sure the stunt coordinator is a female. So I wonder if they were like, hey, you want to be in the show? And then they actually I wouldn't be surprised if they put her in like that because there's so many plugins where it's like the directors or the cameramen and all that good stuff that are just the background people in the show.
Stunt people playing kind of extra smaller roles like that is pretty common in the film industry. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I do know that the pig people,
Gamorreans.
Yeah, the Gamorreans are played by stunt people as well. I think one of them might even be like a MMA fighter or something like that.
That's interesting because then that's another one on the roster for Star Wars.
Yep.
What did you like, Tony?
Oh, so I absolutely love this episode. I was like chomping at the bit with everything that was happening. And I think it's just because it ticked all my boxes with not only what I want with a Star Wars episode, but with an episode of television in general. And that is, it advanced the overall story arc in a compelling way. It had a kind of micro compressed story arc that was a beginning and an end, I should say, within it. And it expanded the world in which we're in because it talked about like Tuscan culture and all that stuff. I also like seeing kind of what I referenced to earlier. I love when Star Wars leans into the genre roots that inspired George Lucas, being samurai films and westerns. And there is a ton of the motifs to the Western genre in this episode, and I love to see it. You love to see it, you know what I mean? And I also really liked how, again, like I kind of referred to earlier, in this we saw in a rich, compelling way, we saw the birth of the Boba Fett character that we will see going on. You know what I mean? He had his own kind of hero's journey, and he came out of the metaphorical pit, not only literally but figuratively, and now he is stronger and ready to take on the world. Hopefully his fighting gets a little faster and edgier in the modern day because of that rebirth. But that aside, yeah, I loved it. I loved everything I was seeing. I had to watch it in two parts. Just because I ran out of time I didn't have enough time to watch it in one sitting. And when I ended the first half, I was like eager to see what was going to happen next. So yeah, I was hanging on every scene.
I know when I was watching, I wasn't saying it out loud, but I was like, I want to pause to see how much is left because I hope this is not the end of the episode because I just wanted to keep watching more and more of it.
Yeah, and when the credits rolled, I was like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I like that you referenced the Western thing because when I watch it, I'm just sitting there and just kind of passively watching and not really thinking about that. And you're right on that's exactly what it is. It's a Western, just like it's supposed to be, and uh, that makes me excited moving forward to try to see different connections to that as well. One thing that I want to point out because last episode when we talked about this, and it's been quite a bit of buzz in the Star Wars community, is why is Boba seeming to be reliant on the Bacta in the present day, and why did he not need it in the Mandalorian, and why is he doing perfectly fine in the desert in his flashbacks? Why isn't he needing this extra Bacta? And I don't know about you guys, but I think that there's going to be something where we get to the point in his past where it gets to his part in the Mandalorian, and I think between that time frame and the time frame that he goes to the palace, I think something happened somewhere in there where he really got screwed up, and that's why he needs Bacta. What do you think about that, Tony?
Yeah, it's probably, just thinking right off the top of my head, it's probably something along those lines, I would imagine. Or maybe it's some sort of like addiction, maybe he was like introduced to it and it made him feel really good, and now he, after every time he takes a punch, he's like, oh, I gotta go, I gotta get healed, I gotta go right now. So yeah, maybe kind of a combination of those two things.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I didn't even think of that aspect of it. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? You think he's going to be tussling with somebody big coming up or something?
We kind of just had a major fight scene in this episode, so I feel like at least not in the next episode. I think next episode's going to be more story driven than fighting, but maybe in the future. But we're on what, episode 2 of, I think you said 7?
Of 7, yep.
Which, being such a short episode count, I'm wondering if they're all going to stay the length that they are now, because I know with Mandalorian there were a lot more episodes, but they were a lot shorter. So I'm hoping that the episodes stay long the way they are.
Yeah, I enjoy just watching as much Star Wars footage as I can. I wish like the movies were director cuts all the time. I don't mind pacing having a little bit of an issue if I get more Star Wars, but
I had a random question. I had a random question for you guys about this episode. So when he went to visit the mayor, typically when there's somebody who doesn't speak English, they'll have like subtitles or something. But the mayor, you could hear his native language, but then you could also hear the English. What do you think was happening there?
There was a device, I think, on his neck.
It implants.
Okay.
It was interesting to see that type of character again too, because I don't know if Sarah's watched it, but there's a Clone Wars show that came out before what a lot of people know as the Clone Wars today. And
yeah, that movie.
Yeah, where it was the like 2D animation. And
oh, yeah.
there was a Jedi that was the same species, and whenever he would use the Force, he would like roar in his gills, but they would just like have the Force look like it's coming out of his neck.
Like the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park?
Kind of.
Sure, yeah.
That's what you're describing it to me like.
And I will say that the prosthetics on the mayor character were absolutely stunning. Like the detail that was put into it to make him look old was incredible. And yeah, and the implants were kind of a nice touch, I thought.
Yeah, I really liked the mayor character, and I'm curious to see how he plays out later on, because I feel like there's a little more to him than he's letting on. So,
oh, probably, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of working with the Hutts to get Boba out of Tatooine.
Well, it's a city government that basically is in cahoots with organized crime. So yeah, I would imagine there's some ulterior motives in there.
Yeah. Another kind of callback to another Dave Filoni thing that was big in the end of the Clone Wars. So the Clone Wars that's coming out recently, we had a handful of episodes that were about spice, and we got to see the species that was actually the ones on the train.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool to see that connection as well. I think this is going to be like, along with the gangster stuff, it's going to be about drugs, which is what the spice is about, and I'm looking forward to it. If you can't tell,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very cool side of Star Wars that we finally get to explore, and I'm so ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you think could really improve from this episode? I enjoyed it. I don't really think there's anything I was watching and I was like, ooh.
No, nothing that wouldn't be just nitpicks.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing where it's going. Do you think the Bacta could be a foreshadow that he may die?
Oh, I don't know, and consider that.
Because I've talked to Sarah about that a couple of times. Like, if he really, really needs it, do you think they're kind of foreshadowing that Bulba's going to be going out? Because we didn't see him or hear about him in the sequel trilogy at all.
Well, right, and typically in the language of film, if the creators decided to spend so much time with the Bacta tank, that clearly is going to that they clearly want the audience to know that that's a thing because of something they're going to do down the line. They'll probably have a scenario where he gets really, really hurt, and something happened to the tank that he can't go back and recover.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. That could very well be it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
That's just my film nerd brain right there.
Yeah. Well, I had just wondered if he was just going to die in general, but knowing that what you just said, I could very well see that being the way that they go. He kind of sticks his life out there knowing that he has the Bacta, and then come to find out it's not there.
Both of what you two are saying, though, kind of lead me to the same assumption of we're probably not getting a season 2, because whether he's dead or so hurt he can't hardly do anything, I don't really see there being a need to continue the story on past that.
I kind of think it could be a filler show. There hasn't been any talk of a season 2 greenlit or anything like that. So I do think this is kind of like Mando 2.5, because, we saw
Which is fine.
Yeah, we saw him at the end of Mando, and then we kind of get this filler. Well, not filler, I mean like filling in the gaps. But yeah. I think something will happen in this show that's going to further advance The Mandalorian. I don't think it's just going to be like a Boba one-off. And another reason why they could be doing this show is because when Disney first acquired Star Wars, there was a lot of talk of, we want to make it look like Marvel, where we have these individual movies and then they all come together. And one of the big topics was a Boba Fett movie. And obviously that didn't come to be because we got what we got. And so I wonder if this is kind of their way of like, Mandalorian is doing very well. I think Boba could really use, the time frame of the show allows, and this could be just a very good way to do it. Anything else you guys want to say about the episode, or anything else moving forward?
Oh, I just had a thought as we were talking about the Bacta tank, because one of our big criticisms of the last episode was his fighting style. And seeing how he had that fighting style that we all wanted in the flashbacks, so between that and when he was introduced to the Bacta tank, that could have had something to do with his fighting style, because If he gets too hurt or something like that, maybe that can affect the healing process, or he doesn't want to spend a ton of time in the tank or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, I
He's
think
kind of taking it easy.
there's a lot. I think, like you said, with them spending so much time on the tank, I think that it's going to play a big role going down the line. I don't think it's just a way to show flashbacks. I think it's going to be more than.
Well, it's that too. That's like the narrative way to do the flashbacks, but also, yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's quite a bit to chew on for this episode. We all really enjoyed it. I'm very excited to see where episode 3 goes. I'm very curious to see if it's always going to be kind of this 2-part story all the way up until the end, or if it's going to eventually close the past and then we see all of the present. Who knows? Either way, though, based off the way this one went, I'm excited. But if you haven't already, please turn on your notifications. That way you are notified when the next Boba discussion drops. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop us a like if you like this video, and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on this episode. Thank you to Tony and Sarah for being here with me. I appreciate you both. Yeah. Look forward to seeing more of them in the future on these Boba discussions. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.